Did you,
My car is
you,
still.
you abandoned your car and ran all the way here?
Quite the athlete.
Okay, well, welcome to the regular board meeting for San Mateo County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, March the 12th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Supervisor Pine.
Here.
Supervisor Groom.
Present.
Supervisor Slocum. Supervisor Tissier. President Horsley.
Here. Now it's time for public comment. And actually, I'm going to do something. There's a couple of people who, actually 3 people want to speak on 38B, and I'm going to pull that off of consent for more discussion. So I'm not going to have you speak at public comment, but I will start with Martin Fox. Actually, 3 people to speak on 38.
Good
So
morning.
in other words, 38 will come up on the regular board, and we'll discuss that item on the agenda. It won't be on consent.
You could move it up, though. So
Yeah, we'll move it up. Martin?
Good morning, President Horsley, honorable members of the board, and my fellow veterans, Supervisor Slocum and Mr. Maltby. Thank you for your service to San Mateo County. Laura's Law is an effective, efficient, and economical recidivism reduction practice that the United States Department of Justice certified a year ago this month. Continuing policies and procedures that subordinate the health and safety of persons living with mental illness who lack the insight needed to seek treatment, and their families, law enforcement, and the public, to the interests of the about-to-be diagnosed, worried well, and their lawyers, reflects an inability to recognize the benefits of creating a treatment compliance behavioral situation and the cost of doing the same old things. Creating a treatment compliance behavioral situation is better than doing those same old things, because the same old things perpetuate the suffering of those who are incapable of understanding their need for treatment, and that existing so-called whatever it takes programs like half-service partnerships do not provide. Please restore the true meaning of "we will do whatever it takes" to help people living with mental illness recover, regardless of whether or not they have the capacity to volunteer for treatment, and vote for Laura's Law. Thank you.
The next person is Catherine O'Malley Hall.
Good morning. My name's Katie. I'm a patient at South County Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. My husband and I have been married for 16 years, and I'm experiencing from what's called the Green Team that my husband and I have been told not to see each other, that we cannot dwell together, and he and I are both on the verge now of homelessness. He is at Kaminar CLC, and he's paying $900 a month room and board and has lost 15 pounds. I have been told I cannot live with him. He is on rep payeship and is not allowed to see me according to Kaminar CLC clinicians. Now, my question is this a prelude to extinction? We have a problem with doctors that are demeaning the clients. I'm asking the county and the doctors within the health services system to give restraint to patients that are married, shall we say, 2 spouses, man and wife, man and woman. And I'm asking for the reconciliation of differences to be among them. And at 1 o'clock today, I have an appointment for a divorce workshop. If I do this, does that mean that, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Kate. Next item is to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items. I am going to remove item 38 to the regular agenda. Any other items?
Mr. President, just had a quick question and maybe a comment or two on item 25.
Do you want
We
to
could move that.
Item 25, okay. Any other items from the consent to regular?
No, I'll move to set the agenda and approve the consent items, pulling 25 and 38 for discussion, 38B for discussion.
Is there a second? All in favor? Yes. Aye. Okay, that's done. The agenda is now set. The first item is the presentation of a proclamation designating March 13th as Women's History Month. Supervisor Groom.
Thank you, President Horsley. Like to ask us to approve a proclamation that proclaims Women's History Month in the county of San Mateo. In 1987, the United States Congress designated March as National Women's History Month in recognition of the myriad roles played by women as well as their ongoing struggle for genuine equality. And for the last 2 decades, San Mateo County has embraced various programs enhancing women's talents and skills while removing cultural and political barriers to women's professional development and advancement, including the fact that we have a very, very active commission on the status of women who on March 22nd will be celebrating the 29th Annual Women's Hall of Fame Awards. And this year, the Women's Hall of Fame will have a permanent home in the San Mateo County History Association building with a digital display acknowledging the history of our Hall of Fame and all of the women who have been entered into the Hall of Fame. So we have lots to celebrate. So I'd like to ask you to approve this proclamation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And then I would like to introduce to you Christine Padilla, who is the president of the Commission on the Status of Women, and present this to her, and she has a few comments to make.
Hello, good morning. President Horsley, honorable members of the board, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland, Mr. Byers. My name is Christine Padilla, and I'm the president of the Commission on the Status of Women. I would like to acknowledge the other members of the commission who are here today. Carrie Gann, our commission director, Honora Miller, and our intern, Jaslyn Lamadora. Proclamations such as these create opportunities to acknowledge the past and present accomplishments of women, along with the struggles for equality that continue today. I would like to take a few brief minutes to update you on the current work of the Commission on the Status of Women. Our current focus areas are women's political leadership development, including a gender analysis of county boards and commissions, advocacy related to women's criminal justice issues, legislative analysis, and an annual women's clothing drive. And of course, annual recognition of women's accomplishments through the Women's Hall of Fame and Young Women of Excellence Awards, which is in its 29th year. The Commission has been keeping actively informed about the diverse needs of women of all ages in San Mateo County and making recommendations on ways to meet those needs since it was established in 1982. Over the past several years, the Commission has focused some energy on encouraging women to become involved politically and has worked with the local chapter of the nonpartisan statewide organization, California Women Lead, which it helped to found in 2008. The Commission continued its efforts to train women to speak and to seek appointment and elected positions by co-sponsoring an appointments training with California Women Lead in Hillsborough and 2 young women leadership trainings at Sequoia High School. Our interest in political involvement of women led to a gender analysis of county boards and commissions that provides information on the nature of participation by women. This is our second year of analysis, and the final report is forthcoming. The Commission is pleased to report that the overall gender mix of county boards and commissions is in line with the general population of the county. While women have a slightly higher rate of membership on the county boards and commissions, half of the 6 decision-making boards and commissions have an underrepresentation of female members, including the Assessment Appeals Board, the Board of Building Permit Appeals, and the Planning Commission. The Commission encourages efforts to expand the outreach for vacancies for all advisory bodies, and particularly those with predominantly male or female members, to increase awareness and offer greater opportunities for participation. We plan to conduct this analysis on an annual basis to develop some data that we hope will encourage all county boards and commissions to actively participate in the annual gender analysis, and that will be done through a survey of questions once a year. For the 4th year, the Commission has conducted a clothing drive for women's work attire with the county employees. The clothing was donated to the Career Closet, a local nonprofit that assists women who are entering and re-entering the workforce. Nearly 100 county employees donated gently used and often new clothing, shoes, and accessories. In addition to keeping aware of the needs of inmates at the Women's Correctional Center, the Commission has been learning about the growing issue of human trafficking in San Mateo County and is becoming involved with the local coordinated response. As we learn more about the needs of trafficking victims, we will return to you with our recommendations. Our Commission is once again collaborating with the Arts Commission during Women's History Month to hold a women's art exhibit here in the Hall of Justice. We hope that you will take a few moments during this month to enjoy the work on display at the Caldwell Gallery and on the lower level as well. This past year, significant effort has gone into the planning of a permanent Women's Hall of Fame exhibit at the San Mateo County History Museum, which will feature each of the 273 honorees in a searchable iPad-driven kiosk, which will include photos and bios and areas of focus. In the future, we're going to be adding video, acceptance speeches, historical context, as well as later achievements. As I wrap up this report, I'd like to take the opportunity to invite each of you and everyone present or viewing this meeting to the 29th Annual Women's Hall of Fame that will be held on Friday, March 22nd at the San Mateo County History Museum, where we will unveil the permanent Women's Hall of Fame exhibit and induct Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, Assemblymember Fiona Ma, and Supervisor Rose Jacobs Gibson into the Hall of Fame. Tickets can still be purchased on brownpapertickets.com, and information is available on the Commission website, smcgov.org/CSW. Thank you for your ongoing support of the Commission on the status of women, and we welcome any feedback and ideas on how the Commission can be of service to you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments? Okay, the next item is a presentation of a proclamation designating March 2013 as National American Red Cross Month, and me. So, okay, Cindy Holzman is representing the San Mateo County Leadership Council of the American Red Cross. Will accept the proclamation, and I make a motion to approve the proclamation. I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye, okay. The American Red Cross has touched many lives in San Mateo County as well as across the country and around the world. During American Red Cross Month, we thank those who contribute to the mission of the Red Cross, whether through time, money, or in many cases, donation of blood. And we invite others to support the Red Cross in helping people in need, either whether they're down the street, across the country, or around the world. The American Red Cross chapter works tirelessly through its nearly 1,000 volunteers to support us when disaster strikes, when someone needs life-saving blood, or the comfort of a helping hand. It provides 24-hour support to members of the military, veterans and their families, and provides training in CPR, aquatic safety, and first aid. It is my honor to be presenting the American Red Cross this proclamation for bringing so much positive impacts to our county as well as around the world. So, Cindy, and I think you're joined by Jenny Stewart as well.
President Horsley, members of the supervisors, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland, Mr. Byers, thank you so much for recognizing the American Red Cross. My name is Cindy Holzman. I'm a volunteer with the Red Cross. I've been on the Leadership Council for 8 years now. And my cohort in crime is Jenny Stewart, who's our mental health lead. Appropriate that she was here when we were talking about mental health a little bit earlier. As you said, Supervisor Horsley, the American Red Cross does a lot of things and mentioned some of the statistics that we accomplished in the past year, but I'd like to bring it closer to home and tell you a little bit about what we've done in San Mateo County in the last year. We have a little over 200 volunteers in the Red Cross in San Mateo County and 1 paid employee. We're there because we love it, not because we get a paycheck for it. We've helped about 350 people in the past year recover from local disasters, mostly house fires, recurring flooding in East Palo Alto, various things like that. We still maintain the long-term recovery center in San Bruno for the people that are affected by the gas explosion over 2 years ago, and we'll continue to do that as long as there's a community need for it. We have deployed 122 people to Hurricane Sandy. Some people get deployed 3 times. People are still there helping out. The Bay Area chapter, it comprises 6 counties. We deployed more people to Hurricane Sandy than any other chapter in this country. So we're pretty proud of that. We've supported 28 Bay Area hospitals with blood, platelets, and plasma. We deployed 32 people to Hurricane Isaac, which a lot of people have forgotten, 18 people to the Colorado wildfires and Tropical Storm Debbie. As I said, we're still involved in San Bruno very heavily. We work quite closely with the county, notably a couple of agencies, Sheriff's OES, in planning, training, and exercises, and with HSA, the Human Services Administration, to prepare all their employees on personal preparedness and how to run a shelter should the need ever arise. We continue to collaborate very closely with both of those agencies. I would like to let you know about a couple of things that we have coming up. We have our annual Heroes Breakfast, which we're all very proud of, and I know most of you have attended in the past. This year it will be on May 30th, which is a Thursday morning at Poplar Creek Grill in San Mateo. It's a beautiful venue. We still have the room for more nominations. We encourage everybody to nominate someone to be a hero. If you know somebody that's done the right thing at the right time, just because it was the right thing to do, we want to know about it. On our website, you can nominate heroes. You can purchase tickets to the breakfast. We also, on June 1st, which is a couple days later, that Saturday morning, having Save a Life Saturday at the Sierra Youth Center right here in Redwood City. And we'll be giving free hands-on CPR training and personal preparedness training. The only hitch is you must register on the website, so you can't just walk in the door. We encourage everybody to take advantage of that. And we look forward to continue the work that we do in working with the county and all the different cities in the county to provide whatever assistance the people of San Mateo County need. Thank you again for this proclamation.
Thank you as well. Thank both Ginny and Cindy. You've done a great job for us, and worked with you a number of times when I was in the Sheriff's Department. Mm-hmm. So again, thanks for your dedication to this really important service. The next presentation is a commendation honoring Gina Coe and Kenneth Ho for their volunteer efforts to plan and organize the City of Foster City's annual Lunar New Year celebration. Supervisor Groom.
Thank you, President Horsley. Have we completed our annual Chinese Lunar New Year celebrations in San Mateo County? I thought it was appropriate this year to ask us to recognize Gina and Kenny for the incredible work they do as volunteer leadership putting on the Foster City Lunar New Year celebration. It is a wonderful celebration of Chinese culture. It's a wonderful community celebration, and it's great talent. They bring many, many children's groups together to show us ancient Chinese musical instruments as well as Chinese dancing, a sword dance that is just breathtaking. And Kenny and Gina have been doing this for so many years. And, you know, they get recognized, but I don't think they get enough recognition. So I thought it would be really terrific today if we honor Gina and Kenny.
President Horsley and supervisors, appreciate so much for Supervisor Carol Groom's recognition. Both me and Gina were proud residents of San Mateo County. We came here when we were 25 years old. We staying, we spent half of our life in San Mateo County. We're proud resident here. So we created this program, was started as using our program. So we want to educate and share our cultural heritage and love for arts and culture with kids. Gina's background is in performing arts management, and I'm an architect, so we kind of mix back our understanding of cultural arts and design and everything. So we create this program with a lot of support from the San Mateo Park Foundation, the Foster City Library, with the City of Foster City, plus College Park School. So every year we have this beautiful song and dance program going on. So next year we're going to step into next year for doing the program. If any of your, if you have time, please stop by and then join us. Will be song and dance and very wonderful cultural celebration. We hope the cultural celebration is not only one day a year. We hope it's every day, for the kids, for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it so much.
I'll have to take you up on that. My granddaughter speaks Mandarin. She goes to a Chinese immersion school in the East Bay, and so she is very involved in Chinese culture. So that's wonderful. Next is a presentation by Andrew. I'm going to butcher this last name. It's Gertha, the director. I'll just kind of skip over real quick so I don't butcher it too badly. The director of San Mateo County's Law Library.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Gerthet, and I am the new director of the San Mateo County Law Library. I am here today because it has come to my attention that many of you may not know that Karen Lutke, the former director of the Law Library for 28 years, retired last July, and I am her replacement. I'm here, therefore, to introduce myself, as well as talk quickly about the current state of the library, and also talk about kind of the future state of where I would like to take it. Before I do, I want to quickly let you know that the honeymoon period for me is over. So keep that in mind.
Very long.
You're always told you have 6 months as a honeymoon. Quickly, just about myself. I have a JD from the University of Wisconsin Law School, and I practiced law for 5 years. I hated every minute of it. I returned to school and got a Master's of Library Science and graduated from San Jose State.
We're going to have to temporarily adjourn.
I'll take my cell phone.
Okay, we're back in session then, and we'll continue with the Law Library. Andrew Gerthet.
Okay, let me go to the next slide. All right, thank you. I guess I now know what this red button does. As I was saying, I have as an introduction to myself, I have a JD degree from the University of Wisconsin Law School, practiced for 5 years, went back to school, got a MLIS degree from San Jose State here locally, and then worked for 4 years as the reference librarian at Stanford Law School. From there, I went on to become the Assistant Dean of Technology at Santa Clara University Law School, and then from there to be the Senior law librarian at Apple Computer for 4 years. Most recently, I've been at UC Hastings as the director of academic technology. I'd actually be there now, however, they went through layoffs last year. They were one of the few law schools in the nation, and they downsized 20%. And me being last in was first out. So I am now here at San Mateo County, and I started in July. I want to take a couple of minutes just quickly to talk about the law library and introduce the law library a little more. You are probably well aware of the library already, but it will lead into the latter half of my presentation. The library is governed by a board of trustees. There are currently 7 members. There's actually always 7 members. Actually, we're at 6 right now, and I'm going to talk to you about that. The president is Attorney Stephen Shaman, a criminal lawyer in the area. We have Judge Foyles, who is the presiding judge of San Mateo County on the board, as well as Judge Scott, who is the assistant presiding judge. I understand that I am currently the only county law library that has both a presiding judge and an assistant presiding judge on their board of trustees. I also have Judge Schwope, as well as Attorney Lou Liberty, and our most recent member who just joined us in January is Margaret Copenhagen. She was an attorney here in San Mateo and was with the district attorney's office for a number of years, from what I understand. There is currently a vacant position that it just literally became a vacant last week. Linda Crow, the head of the Peninsula Library System, resigned. And with that, let me move to my next slide, which I want to talk to a little bit more. The 2 trustees in yellow are Board of Supervisor appointments. And as you may remember, you have appointed Lou Liberty to the board a number of years ago. And then now this vacant position is also a Board of Supervisor appointment. If I may be so bold standing in front of you, I would like to recommend 2 people to that for your consideration. Both are women. I would like to have a more female voice on my board. I also would like to have someone who has a strong sense of technology and also someone who is willing to innovate and change with me as we go forward. The 2 people that I would recommend, the first is Pat Harding. She is the director of the Burlingame Public Library. I've worked with her for a number of years when I was on the board of trustees for the Burlingame Public Library. I believe she'd be an excellent board of trustee for me. The other person is a woman by the name of Julie Lance. She is a young mother of 2 here in Redwood City, just starting out her solo practice. She uses the library quite a bit, is full of ideas, full of energy, willing to go where I would like to go with the library, which I will talk to you about in a minute. So I would recommend your consideration of both those. However, I totally understand it is your decision in the end, and whoever you go with, I will happily work with. Quickly to introduce the law library staff. Since I've started, we've had a 75% changeover in our part-time staff and a 50% changeover in our full-time staff. We now have 2 new, young, bright, smart faces at the library. The first is Caroline Bracco. She was born here in San Mateo and was raised in Redwood City. She has a degree from USC. She is our new reference librarian. Very smart, very street smart. She actually today is in Sacramento meeting with our legislators as part of the Council of County Law Libraries Legislative Day. The other person is Shannon Blue, who is in the room, and I'll have her stand up. We just hired her in December. She is our new technical service and administration librarian. And I'm going to quickly poke a little bit of fun at her in that about a month ago or so, I was in a meeting with her, and she said, well, you know how it is. People who grew up in the 90s on computers don't really understand database interfaces. She is coming from right out of library science school, full of new ideas, full of energy, and it's going to be a great impetus of change for us, an engine of change in the library. She is 100% right, I have to tell you. That is my feeling. Even people who grew up in the 70s and 80s on computers, we don't understand them. Quickly, who we serve. We serve approximately 700 people a month come in through the door. The majority of them are the general public. And I'll give you a typical person who came in last Friday as I'm closing the library. There was a young woman who came in tears. She was trying to obtain a temporary restraining order against her husband. She was also going into a custody hearing on Monday, and she had just found out her husband had hired an attorney. She had no money and could not afford an attorney, and she was beside herself on what to do. That is the typical patron coming in. They do not know what they are doing. They need help. I actually call them the legally walking wounded. There are so many people who come in who just are in need of legal help, and there is no place else for them to turn. And there's the law library right here, right across the street from the court. We get a lot of people who come in for that reason. And that is why I want to talk about this, the old library. When I was in library science school, I was told these don't exist anymore. These are flat files, and I have a big case of these. This is how we track whether we obtain materials or not. So when it comes in, we flip it open, and we write down that it's in and the date and the subscription number and the whatever. The reason these don't exist anymore is because it's all done electronically. Our checkout system is this. It's carbon copy paper. And it gets filed into this, our box. My daughter's elementary school actually uses scanners at the door and allows 7-year-old children to check out their own books at a door with a scanner electronically. She cannot do that. She loves this. I actually inherited an office that had a typewriter in it. That was it, the only thing. There was no computer, it was just a typewriter. And then last, the other thing you'll see there is our computers. We have 3 computers. They date physically from 2000. They were installed, those 3 computers were installed in 2000. They are running currently on a home DSL system, or a DSL connection. And they're running XP Windows. I just recently was over at Santa Cruz and met with the director of the library there. Little Santa Cruz, which is a third the size of San Mateo, has 7 computers that were just recently replaced, and they're running on a T1 line. Contra Costa, which I visited on Friday, which is the exact same size library and county, from what I understand, has 9 computers. So that is why I would like to turn to the new library. The old library under Karen, the mission of the library, which was on everything, every printed material there, was to provide access to legal materials. To me, access means you're there, you're an open door, you walk in, and there is your legal materials. That may have been fine many years ago. I don't believe that that mission is correct anymore, given the extent of change in the budget and all the various places that people used to be able to go to obtain legal services that are not available anymore. I'm changing the mission of the law library to be more in line with the other current county law libraries, especially Sacramento, which is leading the direction on this, to assist patrons. To me, assisting means helping. There needs to be more help than just an open door to legal materials. To that end, what I plan to do is reclassify our library collection. And for a second, I'm going to talk about books here for a minute. The library is the only law library that I can find that is currently on a classification system that no longer exists. So when we obtain books, we have a lot of difficulty cataloging them, finding a space for them on the shelf, because the system that was used no longer is in use. That's why I have Shannon on staff. She is to reclassify the entire collection to the Library of Congress. More importantly, though, electronic circulation. As of this week, hopefully, we will be able to start to check out materials with scanners instead of on carbon copy paper. Additionally, I'm putting in 5, hopefully this month, 5 computers. They're replacing the 3 that are there right now, plus 2. I'm hoping at a minimum to have 10 computers available. And more importantly, in addition to those computers, is what's on those computers. Right now, I have a Lexus and a Westlaw subscription that is so stripped down that I cannot pull up a U.S. Supreme Court case without it coming in and telling me it's out of our plan. Unfortunately, though, I have to say, in order to beef up that, it costs money. Electronic materials are extremely expensive, and that's the one thing I think people do not understand is many reasons we keep the books is it's cheaper. For example, a Westlaw subscription that I would like to have is the same that Sacramento County has. They have a 10-seat license, and it's costing them $15,000 a month, and that's just Westlaw. I'd like to have Lexis. I'd like to have Hein Online. I'd like to have Access Law. There are many, many. Another very big expensive one is Bloomberg, B&A. Those are additional ones. But we're going to get there. The other thing I would like to do quickly is to, let me check my time here, sorry. Offer MCLE credits, hopefully in April for attorneys. Part of the impetus behind this is we're going to charge for that. This will be additional income in the door. That is something that's very important to me, is the library needs to generate additional income than current filing fees and our photocopiers. The MCLE credits, I think is an excellent idea. It shifts a little bit of that use of the library financially onto the attorneys themselves who use it. And then most importantly, the last thing, outreach to the community of San Mateo. We're going to be no longer just an open door to people coming in. I really want to reach out. And specifically, I've identified the following groups: the San Mateo County Bar Association Lawyer Referral Service. We refer hundreds of people a month over to them. There is absolutely no connection right now between the law library and that service. I really need to outreach and work with them closer. Legal aid, various self-help centers, I would like to reach out and work more closely with them. There is currently no relationship at all. Mental health officials. We have, obviously, being a public library and being open to everybody who walks in the street, we get a number of different individuals. I would like to work with our county mental health officials to help those people. Right now, the only recourse I have is to call the police, and I am uncomfortable with that. I have done that now 2-3 times. I don't think really solves my problem. The other one is, of course, the clerks of the Superior Court. They are the front line. They are the people who are seeing these people walk in every day who do not understand what is happening to them, and they are referring them over to the library. I would like to work with them to train them better so that they can give the person, if nothing else, just write down what help they have. Because between the clerk's office and the law library, things get messed up in translation, and we don't understand what they're looking for and have to reinvent what the clerk has just heard. Other one is local law enforcement. As I've mentioned, I've called the police a couple of times for issues that have happened in the library. I would like to build a closer relationship with the law enforcement, just to have monthly coffees, if nothing else. And let's just talk. I'm a public library. I'm there. I'm open to everybody. I see everybody. And then the other one is there's a very strong paralegal program here in San Mateo County with the community colleges. It's an excellent program, and they send their students down all the time to the law library. These are people who come up through their careers and eventually become attorneys and move up and become prominent citizens of San Mateo County. I would like to work closer with those paralegal programs. I've just been nominated to be on the board for the Skyline Community College paralegal program there and advise them. So those are things that I would like to do. In addition, we are currently offering noontime lectures. That is one thing Karen did do. She did have noontime lectures on various subjects. Unfortunately, those are very poorly attended. I'm averaging 15 people. I need to get 50, 75 people on this. And I'm working to see if it's because it's a subject or if it's a lack of outreach, a lack of getting the word out. We have a very good one coming up on expungements. This is a topic that is extremely what's the word, popular in the library. I'm hoping that we will have a better crowd for that. So I'm hoping to tailor these a little better to the needs of the people coming in, and also do a better job at publicizing these. The one other thing that we have just started is a Lawyer in the Library program, and we've partnered with the San Mateo Library. They currently offered this program and have offered it for many years, where they have a lawyer come into various locations, Atherton, Millbrae, and like that, once a month to help people. The San Mateo County Law Library was not a member of that program. We have just started it in January, and so far we've had 2 events, and they worked out very well. And how it works is you come in and you get 20 minutes of free legal advice. I'd like to extend that. Right now it's 2 hours. I'd like to go for an all-day session on all subjects. That is what Contra Costa is doing.
Andrew, could you
Yes.
summarize this? We have a bunch of other items to have to deal with, so thanks.
So you got me actually on my very last slide. I am looking for your support and a new relationship here. What I want to build is a law library for Silicon Valley and a law library for San Mateo County. I would like you to remember me for that, in addition to the fire alarm. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, thank you very much. It's a very comprehensive list. So I'm going to take next, out of order, I'm going to take number 38, and I have 3 speakers on it. But first, Mr. Porter, could you talk about that item? Let me get to it.
Thank you, President Horsley, members of the board, Mr. Holland, Mr. Maltby, and Mr. Byers. This item excuse me, involves a recommendation for an installation of a restricted period parking zone on Jefferson near Roy Cloud School. Excuse me. This request came from the school and was brought to staff to try to encourage walking by school children to get to school rather than being dropped off by their parents. Currently, in the location where the restricted parking zone is being recommended, cars park, there's no sidewalk, so children are forced to get around the cars into the roadway to walk to school. What this would do would be to free up that space to allow the children to walk to school during the daytime. Of course, with that, though, comes inconveniences for the residents that live nearby. During the period of the restricted parking zone hours, those folks would not be able to park there. So it's a balance of neighborhood desires and school desires that we're facing here. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions? There aren't any. There's 3 speakers. Dan Rogers, followed by Darrell Rolla.
Hi. I live on Jefferson Avenue. I don't introduce myself, but thank you for allowing me to speak. I've lived in Emerald Hills since 1960, attended Roy Cloud in my kindergarten year. I've raised 3 children on Jefferson Avenue at 3888. I know the hazards of Jefferson Avenue. It is not the parking issue. It's just not wide enough. But there is an alternative, the other way around the block. The other way around the block is no different, and you go down East Lake, you turn on Mohican, and you come out at Seminole right where there's a crossing guard. There's 2 cars that actually park there. They do not inhibit the people from walking off the street. If you continue to raise the roadbed, the sides of the street get greater and greater. So the angle that you try to walk off of Jefferson is too great, and it's muddy, it's slippery in the wintertime. There is a problem, but by restricting parking does not help alleviate the parking problem from Emerald Hill to where they drop off the kids, not Emerald Hill up the hill to Lakeview. There is an alternative to walk to school. I never let my kids walk down Jefferson. When I walked them, we walked around the other way, came through a crossing guard. This is a bogus need to trying to fix and alleviate a parking problem. They're not saying there's a problem walking to school. They're saying there's a parking problem. to alleviate traffic. That's what's it's so crazy about this. I mean, there is an alternative. Walk your kids the smart way around the block. Thank you.
Okay, Darrell Rolla, followed by Julie Crusteau.
Good morning. My name is Darrell Rolla. I live at 3830 Jefferson Avenue. I brought pictures of my section of Jefferson Avenue in regards to this restricted parking zone, if anybody cares to take a look. It's close to Emerald Hill Road, and this morning I observed all the moms and dads dropping off their kids. They park there momentarily. They drop off their kids, walk them to school, and they're gone in 10 minutes. By restricting their parking in this area, it would cause them a great deal of inconvenience. I don't think it would correct any problems, and also on my side of the street there's sidewalks. So the kids are not restricted by walking to Emerald Hill, walking to Roy Cloud School. So in any event, my request is if they do have a restricted parking zone, it doesn't include the sidewalks on the west side or the east side of Jefferson Avenue. There's a sidewalk there, so it shouldn't incorporate the restricted parking zone there. Other than that, there's not that many kids that do walk down Jefferson Avenue to Roy Cloud School. Most of the moms and dads drop their kids off on Emerald Hill Road. So thank you for the opportunity to speak and address my point of view. Thank you.
Okay, and Julie Cousteau, did you want to ask a question?
I just want to see if you could maybe pass those pictures to us just so we could take a look at them.
Also, is it possible for someone to put a map
Yeah, I can't
on
get
the?
the map.
Because I can't. I don't know how to
There is
do
a map.
Oh,
Can't get mine
how
up.
did you do that?
Did I do it? Go to 38 on that thing here.
Okay.
Oh, no, you just turned it off.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. I'll come back up. Okay.
I guess we grew up in the 90s or something. Dave was a high-tech attorney, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
That
Okay.
one there. And that's actually,
You should have that.
All right.
there
Thank
you
you.
go.
The map is on
It
the
doesn't,
memo.
Just keep
mine
on.
doesn't let me get to the file.
That's because you look at the resolution there.
Oh, you have to
There.
do that first.
That one there.
I was a low-tech
I'm sorry.
land use
You're a
person.
Yeah, you're, right.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hi, my name's Julie Croto, and I serve on the Redwood City Wellness Committee. I also am a parent volunteer. I run Safe Routes to School for Roy Cloud's school, and I am really glad that I came this morning to speak to this. We had members of Redwood City and San Mateo County come out and walk this stretch. It's a very small stretch of school. And I would actually agree with you that I don't think that the parking restriction needs to be done where the sidewalk is, because there's a safe place for children to walk. However, there's a small stretch of the road, which is a main thoroughfare for a lot of kids to get to Roy Cloud. And it would be a minor inconvenience for the couple of houses that are there, but I think that the payoff in terms of safety would be massive. We do have a lot of kids walking. We have a couple hundred kids walking every week. And we have kindergartners through fifth graders. Really, we have the younger kids that are walking. And right now, if they choose to walk that stretch, they do have to walk out onto Jefferson, onto the road to get around back to the path on the side. And it's dangerous. I mean, I've been doing this now for a couple of years. And there have been nights where I've stayed awake wondering if I'm doing the right thing by promoting walking to school, because kids are walking out into the road. And while I do think this is an inconvenience for a couple of houses, I do think the alternative, which is a child getting seriously injured or killed while trying to walk to school, which, by the way, the county and the city are promoting with these grants, these walk-to-school grants, I think we all would have to hang our heads low if we knew that we were a part of that decision. So I guess I would just end by saying I know it's an inconvenience for a couple of houses. I think the safety measures very much outweigh that inconvenience for our children, and I appreciate your consideration.
Before you go, Julie, you're okay with not or restricting parking where there's a sidewalk, but just in the area where there is no sidewalk?
So as I mentioned, we had members of Redwood City and San Mateo County come out because it's where we're really kind of on the border. And I believe, and I'm not sure of the specifics, but I believe the sidewalk ends where Redwood City boundaries end. And then then it's just a dirt path where unincorporated San Mateo County begins.
Okay.
So the parking spots are actually close to the school, but it's the stretch above that where there is no sidewalk, where there's parking, that people would have to go around the cars. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I can see on a map that when you're talking the, I guess it was, I think, was it Dan, when you talked about using Mohican Way, it is, I don't think that, my child went to Roy Cloud School too, and it is kind of out of the way. I think it's most likely that they are going to walk on Jefferson, and so I'm going to move to approve the no parking zone. Is any questions or comments? Dave?
I think, it is a time-limited restriction, if I understand it. It's just 7 to 9 in the morning and 2 to 4. So I think that's important in the balance in my consideration of it.
Supervisor Groom?
How many parking places actually are included in this? It doesn't, the red line doesn't look like very many.
Do you know?
No, sir, I'm just asking how many parking places will be affected?
There's only like 2 spots. And the thing about it is it's all off camber.
Okay. Mr. Porter?
Excuse me. Supervisor Groom, the extent of the parking limit is roughly, could you give me 1 second to look at this resolution? But as the gentleman said, the parking affected is roughly 2 cars that gets impacted by this. But I can look at the resolution and give you a better extent for the length of the zone itself.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the recommendation. Any, a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Next item is item 25.
I will give them after.
Oh, sure.
I don't like the way we do this.
Supervisor Slocum?
Item 25 is the resolution for the new Phase 2 technology web services for the county. Just a couple of quick, maybe 2 questions and a comment. My experience as a department head was that oftentimes we don't budget enough money for employee training in these technology projects. And while at the same time that's a critical component for success. If you notice in the write-up, I think it's $8,000 that is allocated for employee training. And while certainly we could adjust that number later on, it is a concern that amount of money might not be enough, and what avenue might exist later on to supplement that money. Or maybe do it right now, I'm not sure. So that's the concern, and the question is on the employee training.
Mr. Maltby?
Through the president to Supervisor Slocum, if we can bring that issue back to you in a member's memo by the meeting of the 26th, if you could go ahead and approve this, and if we believe that we need a sufficient additional appropriations for training, we will bring that back to you. And if we don't, we will report to you why we don't.
Thank you. Thank you. Just 2 other things. I think it's important just to emphasize the fact that this is a technical project, and I was pleased to see that ISD is plugged into this in a couple of different ways, and I would just encourage us to continue that relationship between this project and our new ISD team. And relatedly, but sort of off topic, yesterday I had the chance to visit the new Government 2.0 Center, which was previously the press room. And it's a pretty it's a pretty awesome space that we've created for Beverly Thames and her web team down there. And I just wanted to thank Mary McMillan and Beverly and Andrew and Asia and Rosa for all their good work that's to come, and for all the good work that they've done on trying to get my Board of Supervisors site up and current and robust. And that work is certainly appreciated, and I look forward to their contributions in the future in that regard. So thank you.
Okay, what's your pleasure on item 25?
I'll move approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Done. Now it's the county manager's report on the Agile organization.
My clicker?
Oh, darn it. Here we go.
We're live. All right. Mr. President, members of the board, we will be discussing this morning a topic that was first addressed to the board during your budget deliberations last June, and that is to take a new look at the nature of work in our organization and how we go about conducting that work. Later on in the meeting, we will be introducing to the board those members of the task force that the board helped create who are in attendance, and thanking them for their good work. And I suspect also the board would want to invite any members of the task force that are present to make comments on this as well. In 1883, when the Pendleton Act was first adopted, our nation and society in general was going through a transition between the agrarian age and the new industrial age. And the Pendleton Act was designed to assist governments at all levels, but it was a federal act when it was first adopted, to provide an increasingly complex array of government services as the demands of this new age place new demands on government. We're now in a new century, and with it, we've seen the advent of the information age, which again is changing both the character and nature of work that we do and our relationships between the government and the citizens it serves. So why undertake this effort now? Well, there's several reasons. First, our workforce is changing. The types of people that have entered the workforce and the multi-generational nature of the workforce is unique to this time and place, and places unique demands on us as an employer and on our need to provide the right environment and the right tools for our employees to deliver this work. As the board is well aware, the demands and the expectations of our citizens have changed dramatically. And one of the things that we, all of us as residents of this increasingly interconnected society expect is essentially 24/7 access to anything that's going on. We simply tap an app on our iPhone, our iPad, or our computer, and we're in touch with the greater world around us, and more specifically, a specific transaction or a specific piece of information that we need. And those same expectations on the part of the general public are also unrealized in many senses as it relates to government service. Again, as the board is well aware, we certainly have gone through a very, very difficult adjustment since 2008, in which we've seen long-term dependable revenue streams for county government become more and more unstable and unpredictable. And also we've seen the devolution of services that have traditionally been performed by the federal or state government to local governments. And as we look to the future, I think it's fair to say that we simply can't depend on Sacramento or Washington, D.C. in the future to assist us with the many and competing demands that we find of county government services, while at the same time, given the fiscal limitations of those governments, seeing that some of the responsibilities that they have heretofore undertaken have now become our responsibilities. Clearly, in the case of the reentry program, the realignment of state-local relationships with respect to criminal justice is really just the tip of the iceberg that I think we're going to continue to see in the next few years. That has changed the whole environment and the nature of not only the relationships between state, federal, and local governments, but of the work that we do and the resources we have to do it. And finally, over many years now, we've seen the falling confidence of people in government. In part, what we've seen is that as people have increased their expectations as consumers and seen more and better access to products, more responsive relationships in many cases with providers of those products in the private sector, they bring those same expectations to their interactions with government. And while we have much to learn from people in the private sector in terms of those types of interactions, what's happened, I think, from a societal standpoint is that in some cases, people have become disconnected from the responsibilities of citizenship and simply view their relationship with government as a transactional, consumer-based relationship. And the nature of citizenship, as the board well knows, is a series of reciprocal obligations and responsibilities. And so one of the things that I think we desperately need is to utilize the new and emerging tools in terms of technology to help to re-engage the public in meaningful ways in those areas of government that are most critical to their life. And terms that weren't even invented just a few years ago may well be applicable to what we're thinking about as our relationships with people in the future. Terms like crowdsourcing, flash mobs. All of those things have some potential application for how we interact with people in the future because they're being used today to conduct meaningful work and or to provide meaningful avenues of input regarding areas of concern. So today we find ourselves at a crossroads. We've gone through a very difficult period in the aftermath of the Great Recession. We've cut costs, we've reduced services, our employees have made significant sacrifices over the years in terms of salary and benefits, and citizens have shown their confidence in San Mateo County government not once but twice within the past year by approving tax increases. Having been given a 10-year window in which to right the ship, if you will, we now have a real obligation, I think, to create an organization that is financially stable and sustainable and able to deliver the quality services to meet the rapidly changing community needs and revitalize the ideals of democracy and community. These are the individuals who served on our committee. On the left are the individuals that came from county government and provided a steadfast and ongoing effort for really the better part of the last year. And particularly, I want to call out Donna Valancourt, whose leadership and direction and commitment to this process has really brought us to where we are today. And to our external members who were recommended by the Board of Supervisors. They attended more meetings than I said that they had to at the beginning of the process. They were engaged throughout the whole process, and their ideas clearly helped to shape the final product before you today. And as I said, in a little while at the end of this item, we'll have the opportunity to recognize all of those individuals and to thank them for their efforts. So what is it that we're suggesting in terms of a framework? Well, really, a framework in which there are multiple future work delivery models. And really, to some degree, we're currently using all of these models for delivering work. So what are the models in particular? Well, first is, for lack of a better term, the regular model. That's the traditional civil service model that we have used in this county for many years. We think after a period of transition, as these ideas are implemented, there'll probably be, on a countywide basis, 10 to 15% fewer people involved in the regular service than are now involved in it. But that will vary by department. Some departments may have very little change depending on the nature of the work and what they do and how they do it. And other departments may have more significant change. Probably one of the biggest changes is what we are calling term work. And it's work that really is of a more limited or project nature. It may involve work in which there's a fairly high degree of turnover. As the board is aware, our county is a very expensive place to live. And as a result of that, in some classifications, there's a fair degree of turnover. In essence, we provide a training ground for other organizations as people get their start here. But really, because of the cost of housing, move on someplace else where they can afford a home and raise a family. And so there are classifications in which turnover has been a constant issue. There are certain types of work in which there are just limited term funding, whether it's a grant or the nature of what we're doing as a pilot project or any one of a number of other types of situations in which the funding is not ongoing. And finally, there are situations in which the skill sets for a position are more fixed and less dynamic than in other instances. One of the types of work delivery is the use of temporary help or fellows or paid internships. We've used these types of jobs in libraries and parks and for elections for many years. In fact, even recently we used it for the county manager. So temporary work, extra help is certainly a part of how we see services being delivered in the future. Contractors. Again, this county has always made fair use of contract workers, usually in areas where they're very specialized and quickly changing skill sets. We've used them for years, as the board is aware, for the private defender program, hire specialized physicians at the hospital, for animal control services, and for fire protection. We've also used volunteers and unpaid workers for many years. And we think that with better organization and greater publicity that we can engage even more of our citizens in volunteer work. That, as we indicate in this particular slide, is work for which there are no appropriations. We don't see volunteers as taking jobs from county employees. We see them as supplementing the existing workforce, and I think there's an additional benefit that we gain from that, and that is it serves to give citizens yet another opportunity to engage with government and broadens the support ultimately of those who do find work as volunteers for the general work of county government. Self-help and a connected community is another category of delivering work. It's really helping people help themselves, and there are a number of examples of how we've used this in the past: vote by mail, online property tax bill paying, checking out books at the library, as was indicated in an earlier presentation, neighborhood watch groups. And really, if you step back and think about it, the implementation of the Affordable Care Act in January 2014 is really another indication of the government stepping back from something in terms of providing health care and saying citizens have that responsibility, and for those citizens that cannot perform that responsibility because of economic reasons or other things, then government will be there as a backup, but the primary responsibility will now rest with citizens. That's really a form of self-help. And finally, something that the board has been very interested in, and certainly we have seen in recent years as cities and counties and schools and special districts have struggled with the financial crisis, of how we can share the limited resources we have to better meet the needs of our joint constituents. We've done it in the past in such areas as wastewater treatment, solid waste and recycling, the joint use of school properties in many communities in the unincorporated area. And we think there are many more opportunities in the future in order to share services for the more efficient and effective delivery of municipal services to our joint residents and constituents. We think going forward, if the board approves this program today, that one of the first steps that can be taken is a series of pilot projects, 4 that we have in mind, one in the county manager's office involving fellowship, the work on policy and professional assignments, such things as Nextdoor, the neighborhood information sharing platform, and Mind Mixer, which has been introduced to the board previously, online community issues discussion, can begin to engage people in serious policy deliberations of the board, and we see the fellowship being an opportunity to use graduate students or recent graduates in that capacity. Information services in such areas as replacement of the business systems and ramping up for multi-year IT projects. The Parks Department, the board will shortly be receiving a report on future strategy for the park system. We think that probably provides opportunities in terms of being able to test some of these ideas in the park system as hopefully additional resources and changes in the park system are explored by the board. And finally, in human resources, in creating a technician program that would use term employees. So we see the next steps as being to, first of all, meet with all of our labor organizations and other stakeholders, begin these pilot processes to determine the organizational and operational and employee-related impacts and gain some valuable data. Change job descriptions and classifications where appropriate. We think that part of this process, we ought to be taking a look at dual career tracks for regular employees so that for those employees that are long-term county employees that have increasing value and knowledge to add to the organization, but may not be either suitable or interested in pursuing management or supervisory positions. There ought to be a way that we can take advantage of that increasing knowledge and experience, and also find ways to reward that financially for those employees and provide incentives for those employees to remain with the organization over the long term. 5, to identify new opportunities to use performance-based compensation, term employees, contractors, volunteers, enhanced self-help, as well as shared services. And 6, where appropriate and necessary, to seek either charter amendments and/or legislative changes that would implement the recommendations. The schedule we see to begin this engagement in step 1 that I've just previously mentioned right away. In April through August, to do a comprehensive analysis to determine all the statutory rules and policy revisions that might be necessary to implement these ideas. In May, to submit a report on the planned tactics to further engage residents in local governance, and that will be an ongoing and evolving effort. By September, to ramp up the pilot projects. In next February, about a year from now, to provide the board with an evaluation and report the results of the pilots. And in September of 2014, to scale up changes across the organization as appropriate. So that, Mr. President and members of the board, completes my discussion. Again, Mr. President, you may want to invite members of the committee to address the board, and obviously any members of the public that would like to do so.
Thank you. Would the board members like to ask questions first? There being none, I'm going to ask Donna Valancourt to come up. Donna? Were you going to?
I just see if there are any members of the committee that might want to address the board.
Oh.
Mr. Brownwood and Mr. Garvey.
It's on.
Thank you very much. Michael Brownrigg, affiliated with the city of Burlingame as a councilman, but also part of a venture capital and merchant bank for social enterprise. So I came into the process not knowing what to expect, and I have to say, to take a step back for a second, that I really commend the board for asking the city manager to think through these steps. And I really commend the city manager, or the CEO as I sort of think of it, because at the end of the day, what we're all about is creating great services for the people who live here. And that is the output, in essence, of government. And you have a really terrific CEO who's thinking about the best way to provide those services today and tomorrow through a great workforce. My own career was, I started in the federal government. I spent 13 years in the U.S. State Department as a diplomat, and I resigned to join the private sector. So I love the public sector. I love government. But I also think that my experience is going to be mirrored by younger people, and especially my kids. The average, if you look at the U.S. workforce, 50% of the workforce has been in their job for 4 years or less. And that's because people switch jobs. People are going to do that. The notion of being in a job when you turn 22 and you retire when you're 55 or 60 or 65 is a very unusual work pattern for this generation to imagine. And therefore, compensation packages that rely on you staying until you're 65 are really kind of backwards and not going to be what attracts the best young talent. Jack Welch said, change before you have to. And what he meant was, get out in front of these changes, don't be behind them. And that's again why I want to commend the process. I was really struck sitting in that room with people from both government and from the outside world, how much dynamism there was, how much willingness to think about new ways of providing better services for people. And then I want to share with you that you know, when I got into Burlingame, early on, we had a couple of employees who worked very hard to save our city save $3 million. So we're little compared to you, but we have a $50 million general fund. So if you save $3 million, you've saved me 6%. I mean, it's amazing. So that it's not too much to say that those savings from those two employees allowed us to do a major capital improvement for our library. I asked the city manager, what can we do for these two? Can we do bonuses? Oh no, we don't do bonuses in government. We don't do that. I mean, it's breathtaking that you don't use the simplest and most effective tools to help reward great outcomes and to encourage great talent. And I think, I mean, while there's still a lot of room to go in terms of some of the ideas and gelling, I think what you've launched here is really profound for the people of San Mateo, and I commend you for that. I have to say, just since I have the microphone, as a city councilman of Burlingame, the earlier law librarian who promotes Pat Harding, she's fantastic. And I just have to put in a plug for her. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity both to serve on the Agile Workforce Task Force and also to address you today. In my work consulting with cities and counties in the Bay Area, and also in the volunteer work that I do with the International City and County Management Association, what I see are many organizations that are struggling with societal and financial factors that are forcing change upon them. And what I see constantly, almost universally, is reaction to those forces and to those changes. You see organizations in retreat, and you see acrimony among employees and the staff and the public and the elected officials as they struggle to deal with the crises. And so it was most refreshing to see my county take an affirmative, positive step towards trying to analyze these forces and to analyze changes that can be made intelligently, positively, and working forward. So I commend you and I commend the staff for the great work done thus far on this project, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. But the other part that I wanted to single out that also is something distinct in the approach that I've seen in San Mateo County is that I don't see anyone scapegoating anyone else in this scenario. We are all together woven into this fabric of the problem that we face. And it is futile and it is not terribly logical, although it's certainly emotionally understandable, for people to criticize others, to criticize the elected officials, to criticize the employees, to criticize the public demands. Whatever the criticism is, it is harmful to what is trying to be done. And I'm so pleased to see that in this case there was no finger pointing. There was an understanding that everybody is involved in, we've all gotten into this problem together, and we all together will get out of this problem in an intelligent and planned and foresightful manner. So I commend the board for your leadership. I commend John for the work that he's done. I commend Donna and the other staff people who have worked so hard with the task force. And I'm just looking very much forward to seeing this project go forward and to serve as a model for others in cities and counties. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I know you were pretty creative with San Carlos, so with a lot of different JPAs. Anybody else from the task force want to speak? Any questions from board members?
Comments? Comments.
Comments, yes. Supervisor Tessier?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple comments. I have to say, I found this very refreshing. To me, we've, in some areas, have become stale. We haven't used the technology that we need to use in order to get ahead and to be able to communicate with our constituents. The idea of having new tools, just like at the hospital, they're doing the LEAN program. It's a difficult program, but it's going to improve the outcomes for our patients. That's the type of thing we need to be doing in some of these different areas. And what I'm really looking forward to is the pilot programs, to really see how we can take what's here, put it into practice, and see the outcomes, to see how this actually will work. And I like the fact that, we're not trying to swallow a lot of things, but just 3 or 4 areas where we can tackle a problem, see how it works out, and then evaluate it. So as we move forward, if it works, we want it to work in a lot of different areas. If it doesn't work, we want to step back and say that's not going to get us to where we want to go. And I do think in this day and age, you look at all these younger individuals, and they are constantly on their computers. That's how they connect. That's how they get their news. They don't get the newspaper. They don't come to these meetings, but they go online to find out what's being done. Yet sometimes I think we don't connect back with them. And this tells me that, with some new practices in order, we will be connecting more and more and more with the youth, and not just the youth, everyone. I mean, most people really now are very well connected, no matter what the age group is, and yet we don't seem to be connecting with them. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to move this county forward in a real positive way. And I don't want anybody to think that some of this is harmful to the employee base. I think what it does, what I see and hear, is a lot more training of employees, a lot more tools for our employees, for them also to be able to serve the public even better. So I do agree that, a lot of these young folks right now getting into work don't stay. You see that over and over again. They do not stay in careers. They move around a lot. And yet I hope we can capture their talent, like the Code for America. That was the most refreshing thing, to have those individuals come here from the private sector, take a year off and tackle a problem such as hunger in our community. And they're going to come back with recommendations. They're only going to be doing this for a year, but in that short period of time, they will probably help us solve an incredible problem that we would be working on over and over and over again. And that's the kind of energy, and that's the kind of tasks I'd like to see us do in specialty areas, where we can really solve a problem by bringing people in that have an incredible expertise in different areas. So I really look forward, and I would recommend that we do go forward with what's being recommended here and continue to work with our employees and with our labor groups and with our business community, and really get the greatest ideas we can to move this thing forward in a real positive way.
Supervisor Pai?
I did have a couple of questions. Maybe I'll start with those and then come back on comments later. But if I could ask just a couple questions. I guess for the county manager, and this may be a hard one to answer, but you laid out different types of approaches to accomplishing our work. So today, I think we have roughly 5,200 employees. So let's just imagine it's 10 years from now. Let's assume the demand stay constant. Mm-hmm. And would you, at this point, have any thought as to, how many employees we would have, how many would be regular, how many would be temp, or the term? I mean, again, I know that's a fair question, but if we projected ourselves way out, we do everything in here, and then what's our world look like?
Right. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I would think that if you're looking 10 years out, and if you're looking at, let's say a stable workforce of 5,000 employees, probably 10 to 15% of those might be in the category of term, and that would be by attrition or as new employees are added. As we indicated in the report, what our intention would be is as employees trit or as new positions are added, to apply the criteria that would be agreed upon to those jobs to see which would fall into which category. I think probably, as demands will increase on government, and it's probably safe to say 10 years from now there will be at least one or two things the county's doing that none of us anticipate today. And we probably will be able to meet that need much more efficiently and quickly by applying some of these models than we could have just using civil service in the past. So I think probably the real change will be in going forward how we deal with the additional workload that we see coming from the federal and the state levels, additional demands from our community, and having a workforce that is in fact more agile, and can we use these tools in different ways to meet those needs, so that in fact the organization, the core organization that we have that's ongoing through time, is a stable, dependable, and financially sustainable organization that's here for the citizens of the county.
Okay. On the question of turnover, it was mentioned that we have some areas with relatively high turnover. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit. I get a better sense for where that occurs in the county today.
Well, I think it occurs in pockets. And Donna could probably better address that than I do, because they do a regular report on turnover. But I think on an annual basis, 7% of the organization turns over. My feeling is probably lower paid positions. But you know, I used to say, as it related, for instance, to the sheriff's department, that we pay pretty well in the sheriff's department, and we would hire a young man or a young woman as a deputy sheriff. They would probably live in the county. They may be residing as a single person in an apartment with 2 or 3 other people, so they could afford living here, and they would start their career. And then sooner or later, as things usually happen, people form relationships. Those relationships, in many instances, lead to children. And now the deputy sheriff is starting to think about where they're going to raise their family. And as we know, where homes are more affordable to the east, sometimes all the way out in San Joaquin County, they'll find a house to live. And then that deputy sheriff is driving to work 3 or 4 times a week past 50 different police departments. And they're pretty smart people, and all of a sudden they figure out, you know, we could get a job a lot closer to home, save 2 hours commuting each way, and they're gone. So it just really depends on the nature of the job and what the circumstances are. But there are a number of instances where we just don't keep employees as we used to.
Yeah, I can follow up with Don. I think what you're saying is we probably have the higher turnover in that kind of demographic as opposed to maybe a specific function in the county. On the issue of performance pay, do we have any performance pay mechanisms in place in the county today?
One that I'm aware of, and that is in our child support area.
That's right.
Which has been very successful over the years. And I think one of the things that we would like to do, and obviously we need to have some very thorough discussions with our labor partners, is to see where other opportunities like that might exist in the county so that we could provide those sorts of incentives that Mr. Brownrigg talked about that we think are important today in attracting and maintaining the type of workforce that we see as necessary in the future.
I mean, to Mr. Brownrigg's point, there is a place you do want to be able to reward people for extraordinary things, particularly when it results in incredible financial benefits to an organization. And then my last question, and I'll kind of yield the floor, I can come back and make my comments later, is Donna. One of the prototype pilots, the ISD, the parks, and you have one here described as well, this HR technician generalist. Is that envisioned to be this so-called term model? So these are folks you don't currently have on board, and you would hire them with the idea that they have a short term. I see. Okay. I can come back and make some comments a little bit later.
Okay. Supervisor Groom, you have any comments, or Supervisor Slocum?
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a few things in no particular order. I'm curious to know the work of the committee that was involved in all this. Is it envisioned that work continues, or are they now done? What's sort of the plan for that group?
Through Supervisor Horsley and Supervisor Slocum. The work is divided into 2 phases. This is the completion of the first phase. And some of the members of the committee have expressed an interest of being involved in the second phase, which is the community engagement, civic engagement phase, if you will. And they will continue, and we will give you a report later this spring on that work.
Thank you. And unfortunately, I can't find in the report where it talks to this point. But you said maybe in a couple spots that you would engage stakeholders and labor groups in a conversation about this plan and its rollout. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that might look like, and also maybe with an emphasis on San Mateo County workers and how you might roll out those conversations with them.
I could turn that over to Donna, but basically, almost all these areas touch on wages, benefits, and working conditions. And so it's going to be a very comprehensive conversation involving all of those areas. I think that we're really think Mr. Garvey probably said it best, in that we see this as an opportunity to join together to create something that benefits both employees and the public that we serve, and that is a sustainable organization with good pay, good benefits, and good job prospects. And so we think approaching that issue from that standpoint really serves everybody's interests. And so we're really enthusiastic about these future discussions.
Thank you. Just one last question. Later on in the process, will there be success measures developed for each of those pilot programs that would be shared with the board?
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the evaluation process, we will certainly incorporate that, and even give you periodic updates before the final report if that's the board's desire. We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. You know, one of your slides showed about the increased cynicism on the part of the public, and I certainly see that. On an almost daily basis. But sometimes I think that is because the fact that, you know, frankly, sometimes I don't think we necessarily give our staff the tools, the resources to actually get the job done. And it is true that the community has expectations of us and devolution from everything from the federal government to state government. I'm not so sure that county government will actually be smaller. I think the idea of an agile workforce probably is maybe a way to supplement that. I suspect we're going to have more responsibilities than we currently have. And you just look at the things we have with stormwater, and you know, I could probably give you a list of 10 or 15 things on the coast side that come to mind. Having been in law enforcement, unfortunately the captain just left. It's hard to imagine that a deputy sheriff would come in and accept a defined, not a defined, but defined contributions plan when everybody else has a defined benefit, because I don't think he or she is going to know that 5 or 10 years down the road that they're going to transfer to another department. In fact, I know the sheriff's department, and I know law enforcement agencies in general, it costs a lot of money to train one of those people, and they really don't like to lose them. And when they do, it's
They do all the time.
it does happen all the time, although the attrition rate in the sheriff's department is rather small. And I think it's because of the fact that it's the premier law enforcement agency. but I think it's because of the variety of things that they have to do. So it's hard to imagine how that would work in law enforcement. It's hard also to imagine how it would work, for example, like an eligibility worker or a social worker. Might, but I'm having some difficulty seeing that. I actually think that the agile workforce works better at higher levels, whether it may be a biologist, natural resources protection specialist. It's hard to imagine jobs like, you know, social worker again, eligibility worker, receptionist. How it's hard to imagine how that actually works with them.
Well, as I mentioned, I think that it applies differently to different departments, but even, you know, take deputy sheriff or social worker or any of the categories that I think most of us would say are essential employees. There are still within even those categories some turnover and some people that are just not going to be here for the long term. So the question is, how do you make that linkage from the person that you hired today to that person that may leave in a short term versus one that's going to be here? And I think you have to provide ladders for those people that are going to be here to move up in the organization and move from a term to a regular employee. And you know, I think that frankly is one of the easier things to do. I think we probably have some experience with that.
Well, we probably do. In fact, but I've been around long enough to remember that the counties had different tiers, and we had one tier, I forgot what it was, 4 or 5 or something. Five.
Yeah.
And the idea was that it was essentially a defined contribution plan. And people would come into it initially because, gee, I'd rather have that take-home money that in my pocket as opposed to someplace else, into a long-term retirement plan. And those people, after about 5 or 10 years being in the county, said, gee, that wasn't such a good choice. I want to be in a defined contribution. And so then they moved themselves in, and then, so So again, I think the idea, most people coming to work in the county don't know that they're going to be here for a short period of time unless that's something that we set up in advance. And I do think that those positions that either with limited funding, grant funding, for example, where your skills erode, could be an ISD, that those are probably positions that lend themselves to it. I have a harder time seeing positions in HSA or maybe, I don't know about parks, but when you talked about there's some job descriptions, have you had some general ideas about jobs that would fit?
I think the next work is to define the criteria. We have some general ideas about what those criteria would be. Obviously, we're going to be talking to the unions about that. And I think so, once you get a list of criteria, then you could begin to apply it against jobs. And if the criteria is good, then you make decisions that are reflective of the type of workforce you want to create. And I don't want to, I don't want to diminish what you say, but I also want to leave the door open for us to be able to make intelligent decisions about how the workforce is now being shaped. I'm certainly an example of this, and there are others that people are coming back in the workforce. Maybe with retirements, maybe with totally different motivations that pension just doesn't mean the same thing to them. So I think we have to provide for what will be a lot of different type of workers in the future with different needs for those, other than try to hammer them into the civil service hole that we've traditionally used.
Well, let me give you an example of a recent one. It was a conversation with a couple of attorneys out of the county, our esteemed county counsel's office, and they were talking to a private attorney, and they said, "Be no way would they work for the county if it weren't for the defined benefit contribution plan, or defined benefit, that is." And the reason is because the compensation in the private sector is so much greater. So I think we're gonna, I don't want to sell that pension system. I know it's a legacy cost, are very hard, very difficult for us, for the county. At the same time, they're a big draw for things like law enforcement, like county counsel's office, like the district attorney's office. So it's hard to imagine. I'm a little skeptical on how it works. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I think it's actually, I give you and the team a lot of credit for coming up with really innovative solutions, because we do have to deal with those legacy costs. But at the same time, I think I'm a little cautious and concerned about what it means for our workforce in the future. The other thing about it is that when we bring people in, and Donna can speak to this as well, might be coming in as a receptionist, and we put a lot of training into them, and they end up maybe as an HR analyst, or in the sheriff's department they start off as, in some cases, a secretary who are now planning our new jail. So even though they're entry-level positions, we put a lot of training and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears basically into developing those people so that they can do the kind of jobs in the future that we really need. So, I think our workforce, they may come in at a lower level, but a lot, we really are trying to find those stars, those superstars, like Debbie Bazan in the sheriff's department.
And those people, I mean, a system has to allow for those people to matriculate into the types of long-term roles with salary and benefits that are commensurate with those, that show their value to the organization, as opposed to somebody else that's coming in and saying, I'm right out of college and I want to kind of figure out what I want to do and get some experience. But, after I've done that, gee, maybe this looks better over here. So I think you have to provide for all of those types of situations.
My only concern about that is that, like you have this future star like Debbie, for example, and if you said to Debbie when she first started, you're in the agile workforce, in 5 years you're gone. I want to make sure that there's a path that person that we say, gee, we don't want you to be gone. We want you to stay.
I think we agree with you. Yeah, we don't disagree with that. Absolutely.
Okay, that's my comments. Supervisor Groom, you wanted to?
Thank you. I guess I'm trying to put myself in an entirely new mindset, and I'm trying not to think about how we are today or how we are. I'm trying to think of what happens in 10 years, who the people that will come to work in 10 years, and what kind of lifestyle they will want, what kind of job they will want. So I'm very curious to see how the pilot programs would start and finish. There's no doubt that we have a very dedicated employee pool right now, but the average age of our employees is growing. And so we will be looking for new people, and maybe those folks will want a new way of working. Maybe they won't, but I think that's what we have to, so I'm trying not to think about today at all, and that's hard, you know. You're always thinking about today, and right, you know, but so I think the pilot programs will be interesting as we watch them and we monitor them. As we've said throughout today and other meetings, we don't have enough training, and we don't have enough tools. And if this brings tools and training, if nothing else, it will be a successful transfer of how we do things. I think that when we talk to employees, all employees want to improve themselves. All of our employees want to do better at what they do, and so they want to be more efficient, but they need help, and we all need help. We all need to be taught new skills. So I think that's a very good part of this. If we look to the south of us, to Silicon Valley, and the creative way that we believe they're working these days, we don't always have that opportunity because we have defined duties and we have defined office space and we have defined hours of work. And so that would be an interesting thing, too, to sort of really change the way that our employees are allowed to work. So I think we ought to go forward with the pilot programs, and then we really ought to evaluate them carefully.
Supervisor Pine?
Thank you. So a couple comments. I mean, first, as many have said, it's really terrific that we're doing this sort of thinking and trying to, not wait until we're in a crisis. And I think we need to, going into this, realize that we're not going to get it right as we proceed through this. We're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. I mean, one of the big problems, the challenges of government is it's a very risk-averse organization. So to do something like this, we ought to just agree that we're going to make a lot of big mistakes and be okay with that, because this is very transformative. And it's going to be hard work and require a lot of discussion and a lot of engagement. So I think that should be a mantra here. A couple things that stood out to me. I really liked some of the focus on thinking about how to attract people, really talented, capable people earlier on in their careers, and who really may want to come in and do some public service before moving into the private sector. I mean, there was a time in the country not that long ago, at least when I was growing up, where there was this notion that working for government was a very noble undertaking. Many of our young people today do not hold that, and somehow we have to turn that around, and we got to recruit those people and say, like, I know you want to be an entrepreneur and make all this money, but maybe you ought to give back to the community for a few years and come work for the public sector. That's a cultural thing that has really changed because government has been unfortunately demonized for 30 years now. But maybe here in our local area, we can try to instill amongst early career people some sense of public service, and having flexibility there is be critical. Again, if that's their plan, they don't want to be in a pension plan because it's not going to be any value to them. They're not here for 5 years to vest. So it's something to think through. I think one underlying premise behind this plan too is not only do we need to be agile, but we have to be cognizant of our cost structure. We have a very high cost structure. The entire public sector has, and so when we think about this, with the term employees, I mean that's a lower cost model, but we also have to think about our cost structure for the regular employees. We do, in the public safety sphere, there's 100% your salary plus 100% equals your compensation. That's a pretty big cost. In our normal employees, I believe it's about a 60%. So again, if 85% of our employees are here, and again, this is all forward-looking because we're going to have this massive turnover. We're going to have a lot of new people hiring, and there's a lot of cost there, and we have to think about it. It's one of the reasons why I brought up a few times trying to think about the unfunded liability, because that drives a lot of those costs. And when we think of structural cost savings, everybody has to chip in. So, for example, individuals who are making $150,000 or more, do they really need, what kind of pension plan do they need? Maybe some of them could have a defined benefit plan because they're being paid very well. Now, of course, there's always the problem of the market, and we have to recruit, and that's a challenge because we need the best people, and if the best people have these things, then it's all a balance. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is the savings can't all come from the kind of the term employees if savings is an objective. Let's see, 2 more points. I think this distinction between regular and term is going to be really tough, and a lot of hard thinking will have to be put into that. And again, some of the premises here, again, also apply to regular employees or to management in that turnover is important in management too, because you want to bring in new perspectives at the top. So some of the principles that apply to the term employees, I think, equally apply to our highest level employees. Like, cost savings can come from highest employees, and turnover can be beneficial with higher level employees. So, as in everything in life, there's no easy way to make these definitions. So finally, going forward, we definitely need to engage the community, and particularly labor. It might be helpful to, kind of looking at next steps, because I think these pilots are very promising, particularly in parks and ISD. And there's a period in time here we want to engage stakeholders. So, I think it'd be helpful at some point to come back with either a revised plan or just a report on the feedback that we have received. Maybe we could slate that into the next steps.
Supervisor Tessier?
I would like to actually make a motion to accept the report and provide the direction on these initial steps that are here being recommended. And I think it's fine. I'm sure it looks like we're going to hear something sooner than later anyway. It looks like you're going to come back in about 2 months. So, and if you have anything sooner, any feedback that would be helpful for us, that would be great too. So with that, I'm going to make that motion.
For a second?
Second.
I'm going to call for a roll call on this.
Roll call.
Just because I can. Go ahead.
Supervisor Pine?
Aye.
Supervisor Groom?
Yes.
Supervisor Slocum?
Aye.
Supervisor Tissier?
Aye.
President Horsley?
Aye. Thank you very much. Now I think we have, I'm sorry, I got this out of order, but Donna, I think I'm supposed to come up there with you, or am I?
Yes, you're supposed to come.
I am?
So we just want to recognize the task force members that are here today and the internal committee. It was definitely an honor to work with them on this collaborative process. So starting with Michael Brownrigg. And thank you. Mike Garvey. Bob Hortop. Dave Holland. John Byers. Reina Ferralis. Paul Okada. Rocio Currickson. Marshall Wilson. Did Captain Weiss? Whoops. Oh, no. That's okay. I think that's it. Other folks had to leave, so, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's okay. No, no.
Thank you, Donna. Thank all of you for participating, and thanks for the good work. Next are board members' reports. Oh.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Actually, the county manager's report.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know that you've been desperately waiting for this. I did want to, first of all, I actually wanted to do two things. I want to welcome my friend and colleague, Mr. Holland, back. He tells me he wants to challenge the board to a foot race whenever the board members are ready. It's good to have Dave back, and we've missed him.
Thank you.
The report that I wanted to give, just an update on the sequestration, which is another one of these new terms that needs definition. The definition is Congress not doing its job, and what impact that has on county government. We think at this point the impact from a financial standpoint is not too significant. It looks to be about $2.3 million, primarily in the areas of health and human services. But as with many things that the federal government does, one thing leads to another, and so we continue to look at this. The next major step, of course, is to see if Congress can actually pass a budget. It would be too much to ask to pass a full fiscal year budget, but they still can pass a budget for 6 months, which would be a significant improvement over what's been done in the past few years. So in that process, there may be other things that have a adverse impact on the county. The one thing that I did want to bring to your attention is that as part of the sequestration, there will be some interruptions in the FAA operation of the control tower at the San Carlos airport, which means that it will revert during certain times to essentially uncontrolled space where pilots land and take off based on visual sightings rather than air traffic control. Other than that, at this point, we are really in a watch and wait mode, and we'll continue to report to the board on additional items as they present themselves. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, board members' reports. Supervisor Grant, nothing. Supervisor Pine. Supervisor Slocum.
I wanted to adjourn today in memory of William Stangl, who some of you might remember. He was 85 years old when he passed. He succumbed to complications of Parkinson's disease, and he was living in Sparks, Nevada for the past couple of years. You'll recall that he was a former mayor of Redwood City and actually ran for the Board of Supervisors, I think, at one time. Don't exactly remember when, but I think he did. And he's survived by his wife, Beatrice Stangl, their children and grandchildren. And Bill said that he would like to be remembered most as a devoted family man and public servant. He was president of the San Mateo Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Merchants Association, Transit District Board of Directors, founding director, Joint Powers Board, Caltrain, and many other civic organizations. So our thoughts are with his family and his children. Thank you.
Supervisor Tessier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two adjourned memories. The first one is for George Lewis Chief Rakomi. He was a lifelong resident of Colma. He was married to his late beloved wife, Corinne, and he was married for more than 59 years. He is survived by his 2 sons, David and Richard, and is also a grandfather. He was a partner at Daly City Scavenger Company for 50 years, and he was also served on the Colma Fire Department for 35 years, and including his reign as chief. He was a very well-respected man, loved by many. He was an avid fisherman and hunter, and he just loved the outdoors. He was a great, great individual. And the other one I wanted to adjourn in memory was for the 3 victims of that automobile accident this weekend in Daly City, and it was a 50-year-old Josefa Osorio Acevedo, 23-year-old Armando Osorio Acevedo, and 15-year-old Joshua Osorio of Daly City. So my sympathies go out to their family.
Thank you. I have actually 3 of them, or actually 4. Teresa Henderson, maybe many of us knew Teresa. She started working at the county in 1990 as an executive secretary in human resources, and given her superb organizational and interpersonal skills, she was promoted to an analyst in the recruitment division and conducted recruitments for a variety of departments, including Human Services Agency and Probation Department. She was passionate about learning and development and transferred to the training division, where she became the training manager. Under her leadership, the county implemented many new innovative leadership development programs, expanded training services to the cities and nonprofits, and developed the award-winning Regional Training Consortium for public agencies. Teresa was recognized by Women in County Government for self-development in 2005 and was a trusted mentor and dear friend to so many in HR and throughout the county. She is survived by her mother Bonnie and her husband Troy, her children Andrea and Troy Jr., and her 3 grandchildren, who brought her incredible joy. The other is another county employee, former county employee, Robert Simby. Robert was a social worker for 10 years in Human Services Agency and worked in a child care unit overseeing child care services for our foster care youth and families. He took a year's leave of absence to assist in the care of his young son Tyler, who was diagnosed with brain cancer. He resigned from the county in May of 2012 so that he and his wife Katrina could care for their young daughter Samantha and provide full-time support to Tyler through his medical appointments and treatments. Then in the fall of 2012, Robert himself was diagnosed with stomach cancer. He had multiple admissions to Stanford Hospital for his own treatment and was recently on hospice care. Robert passed at home with friends and family by his side. We send our deepest sympathy to the Simby family. The other is Jack Schultz. Jack, his actually first name was John. He was a resident of Woodside. How I knew him, he was the proprietor of the Woodside Pub. He and a guy named Ralph Oswald ran that for many years. And San Francisco celebrities, some of you may not be old enough to remember Don Sherwood, and a lot of other local athletes like the 49ers and the Raiders used to spend a lot of time at the Woodside Pub because of both Ralph and Jack were just great restaurateurs. And Jack was always seen not only with a martini, but also a cigar stuffed in his face. And the last one I'm going to do is actually Marty Fox. I'm going to do this for Marty. It's Richard Webster, 61, from Contra Costa County. So we will now adjourn it to closed session, and we'll come back. Actually, the board will be doing service awards at 1:30 p.m. in room 101. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, John. Ooh, it's on. Hello. Why is that not coming?
We'll just start in a minute. We are now back from closed session. Mr. Byers, can you report on the results of closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I do have one action to report. The board settled a pre-litigation personal injury matter for $125,000.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. We will now adjourn and at the 1:30, we'll do service awards.